Without any further ado, I introduce Professor Julian Goodare, who's going to preface our two student projects, and I'm delighted he's been involved with us with so many years and been patient with us. He's the project director of the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft and Emeritus Professor of History at the University of Edinburgh. So could you clap your hands in the usual manner?
Yeah, well, thank you to you, and especially for organising this event, getting it all together, organising the map. Thank you to all you for coming, and special thank you to Ellie and Ruby, who are the important ones, I think, this afternoon. But I've been asked to say a few words about the survey and witchcraft in general, sort of in search of Scottish witches. It feels a bit odd to be a historian in a Futures Institute. And I've been thinking about this, that, history is about the past, isn't it? Well, actually, I think history is about the present. The past is sort of back there and it happened. But what history is, it's not simply the past that happened. History is our answers today to the questions that we ourselves ask about the past. And history is only important because we care about it. And why we do care, I mean, assuming we do, you probably care at least a little bit, you wouldn't be here, but is because we care about the present and we care about our common humanity. Everybody's different, but we also all share a common humanity. And we try to understand other human beings and indeed ourselves. Still trying to understand other human beings, still trying to understand myself. It's an ongoing project that we seem to have as humans. And one of the ways we do that is that we try to understand how people behave to each other in the past and how things have changed. How did we get where we are, or we came from somewhere back then? But understanding how people did things, sometimes the same, sometimes different back then, is part of understanding our common humanity. So this is very much, I think, a project about today. That's how it should be. Witches and witchcraft. It's a curious thing, and some people, I think, want me to tell them sort of what a witch is and to give them the ultimate answer to, this is the ultimate meaning to what a witch is and what witchcraft is. And the ultimate answer really is that there isn't one, it keeps changing. And the word witch and the ideas around it, they swirl around and they get used in different ways by different people and at different times. And one of the things that strikes me is that today you can find people who identify themselves as witches. They think, I'm a witch. And that's something they're proud of. In the period that I study, 300 or 400 years ago, the time when witches were being prosecuted and burnt at the stake, being a witch was a bad thing. Everybody agreed on that, and nobody called themselves a witch. The people in the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft were called witch by someone else. And how they did that and what that meant, we're still trying to understand it. But there are two basic ideas that lead to the prosecutions of witches. And you can call them the bottom-up and top-down idea, or the sort of village witch and the demonic witch. The sort of bottom-up idea, the common folks idea, the peasants' idea is a witch is someone who causes magical harm to their neighbours. Probably her neighbours are witches. Probably a woman, though, doesn't have to be. And so witchcraft in this sense emerges from quarrels and curses and misfortune. Something bad happens. Why has this bad thing happened to me? Because last week I had a quarrel with old Mrs. So-and-so and she's getting her revenge by magic. And you imagine that a woman will do that. And you don't imagine that a man will do that, because he'll come around and beat you up if you anger a man. But if you anger a woman, she might bewitch you. That is the fear that people have, that other people will bewitch them. And how they identify particular people as witches. Could talk about that all afternoon, but I won't. But villagers can sometimes identify particular people as having committed an act of witchcraft or being witches. The other idea, it's a top-down idea, it's an elite educated idea of the witch in league with the devil. The witch who sells her soul to the devil, the witch who makes a pact with the devil, and transfers her allegiance from God to the devil. So sort of theological idea, and it's a group idea, it's a conspiracy. There are witches plural. The devil is recruiting human agents in an effort to overthrow human society and tempt humans to sin. So the demonic witch in league with the devil and the village witch who harms their neighbors have got nothing in common with one another, apart from the word. But they somehow come together to produce this. And, we historians are still trying to work out, is this top down or is it bottom up? But it is top down in the sense that the accused witches were accused formally by the courts. This is a legal process. It's a governmental process. This is not about lynchings. It's not about village popular justice. It's about the highest authorities in the land. And so all these witches who were accused have had legal trials of some kind. They weren't all executed. Many of them we don't actually know. And that is partly because many of the records don't survive. When we're searching for the witches of the past, that is the people who were called witches officially, we can't find them all. We have not got all the names, and sometimes we know that there were records that are lost where we see groups of witches and nobody can tell us much about them. Most of the actual trial records have disappeared. However, some of them do survive. With some of them, we know quite a lot. And what we do have in Scotland, and we don't have in very many other countries, and certainly not in England, is we've got a sort of backbone. There is a register of commissions to authorize trials. And that gives us a lot of names, places, and dates. And for many, in fact, most of the accused witches in the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, what we've got is a name from that register. And that register survives more or less complete, at least from 1608. And so we think we've got most of the names. It's an order to hold a trial. Was a trial actually held? We don't always know. Were they convicted? We don't always know. Probably the answer is yes and yes for most of them, I'm sorry to say. But we can't be sure for each of them. But we've got a lot of names, a lot of places, and a lot of dates. And for a few of them, maybe 5 or 10%, we've got a great deal of information. And this morning I was editing a particular sort of witchcraft case. It's actually a man, Alexander Drummond. And the authorities wrote over 20,000 words about the magic that he was supposed to have been doing. So we know a lot about him, and that's going to be published next year. So when you click on individual witches in the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, what you get, sometimes you really don't get much more than a name, a place, and a date. And a suspicion that person was probably brought to trial, and they were probably convicted, probably executed, probably by burning at the stake. Almost always, as far as we can tell, they strangled them first and the dead body was burned. But that is what they do to convicted witches because they don't like them. The villagers don't like them. The authorities don't like them. Why witchcraft trials come up in the 17th century, in the 16th century, and then down again, and you can see the numbers rising and then falling. I think it is to do with what I call the godless state. It is the authorities trying to inculcate correct Christianity and then losing interest and moving on to other things. How long have I got? I think as we started possibly later than we intended, I might just stop there, and there will be opportunities to ask questions later, but I've got a sort of sense that that may be enough for Ellie and Ruby to get going on.